Everyone, this is update for June 2, 2022, day 99 of the war, end of the date update, even though it's morning here. So we'll just do a little bit about strategy, general situation, and we're going to do a walk through the front line as we always do. Today probably will be relatively light on strategy and general questions. I'll try to keep it short. So one thing I forgot to mention yesterday is that Russia restricted export of gas called neon, which is essential in the manufacturing of semiconductors. And for those who've been watching the channel from the very beginning, they know that Ukraine used to supply about 50% of the world's supply of neon gas. And Ukraine had two facilities, one in Mariupol, which was destroyed, and the other one in Odessa. But essentially, both facilities at this point not exporting anything. So Ukraine was that, and then Russia is about 30%. It doesn't mean that they stop exporting, but they reducing export of it, which what this really translates to, that it's going to be harder to make semiconductors, chips and everything. So that really means that the cost of all of the electronics, computers, smartphones, everything, everything we use is going to go up essentially. So, and we're not sure if this is related to retaliation from Taiwan, which said that they're going to stop exporting essentially all of their sort of modern chips, and also not going to provide equipment to Russia in their effort to build local semiconductor manufacturing facilities. So essentially, Russia has lost ability to produce semiconductors, which it was trying to achieve, and then also lost supply of semiconductors and chips and processors and everything. So that's kind of, things are definitely getting more difficult there. Then there is another interesting economic data point. So VAT collections by Russian government fell from 740 billion rubles to about 400 billion rubles in April, if we compare April 2022 to April 2021. And for those who are not very familiar with what VAT tax is, this is essentially tax on consumers. It's similar, like, for example, in US, it's a sales tax, and most of the world uses VAT concept for taxing consumers. So that really means that the consumption is really shrinking, as you can see, 740 to 400, almost 2 times. So there is severe pain at their ordinary consumer level in Russia for sure. So that's another data point. Also, I forgot to mention I didn't want to make the video too long. I didn't discuss that the Ukraine is receiving M142 multiple rocket launcher system that we looked at them about a week ago, 5 days ago. You can kind of go back a few issues and kind of find discussion about those. So Ukraine will not receive, as we predicted in that video, Ukraine will not receive long distance rockets. So there were like 300 and 500 kilometers rockets, and Ukraine will not get those. Ukraine will get just regular, I think, 70-kilometer range rockets. As we mentioned at that time, it sounds very kind of like a big deal, and it's used by propaganda in Ukraine as something as big deal. Reality is it's not a game changer, and Ukraine only get four launchers, right? These are wheeled launchers, and they have 6 rockets each. So it's essentially not much, and really they're not changing anything. There is still promise to receive 4 more from the UK, but those ones are actually M270, which is kind of, to extent you can kind of say, grandfather of M142. And and those are tracked. And then also Germany promises 4 more as well tracked, which is M270. But with Germany, it's being sort of situation where there's a lot of promises and there is not much really delivered in terms of heavy weapons specifically. So even though let's say Ukraine gets 8 of those, they really not changing much. Yeah, they more precise than sort of Soviet equivalent that's being used by Russia, and actually Ukraine has it too, right? We spoke about that, but really it's not going to change the situation. However, it irritated Russian political top tremendously, to the point that Medvedev, who used to be Russian president from, I believe, 2008 to 2012, or something like in that time range. So he spoke with Al Jazeera and essentially threatened to shoot nuclear sort of weapons towards not Ukraine, but actually towards the U.S. So this is also related to that nuclear drill that we spoke about that Russia went through, I think a day ago, 2 days ago. So the nuclear drill is actually not the drill on like how to launch the nuclear rockets. Drill is actually kind of really actually much worse. The drill was actually is about like, okay, the nuclear rocket hits some area in Russia, and we're going and sort of detecting radiation, figure out what to do, sort of like how to deal with that situation. So that was a drill about, which kind of really makes it much even worse in terms of the meaning of it and spirit of it. So that's it in terms of strategic stuff for today. Let's go back to the front line. We always do in a clockwise fashion, start from very north, from Chernihiv, Sumy region of Ukraine. Again, there was exchange of artillery fire on both sides. Intensity is not rising, kind of stays stable. And corresponding regions in Russia are Bryansk region, which is here, then Kursk region, and then Belgorod region here. This section specifically, obviously, because the rest is controlled by Russia. So, again, nothing really major there. Now let's go down south. Let's look what's going on near Kharkiv. Situation there, again, stable, just low intensity fighting, artillery sharing, but really no major news or changes here at all. Nothing really to report, honestly. Let's go more south. Let's look what's going on at Izyum bridgehead and former Lyman bridgehead. This is a high-level overview of the forces of the units. This is relatively used to be fresh Russian units here, mechanized brigades, and these are much more worn-out units that were actually used by Russian command to create battle groups or consolidated units, and they were actually sent to Popasna area. So they were pretty good at maneuvering with their troops, and then even though these troops are pretty worn out, they consolidate them and they still throw them into the battle. And these are Ukrainian brigades that are holding front line here. Let's actually look at the actual situation. So this whole bridgehead remains stable. Russia continues hitting here from village Pasika towards south, in the hopes to break through, and kind of it creates a lot of opportunities, as we discussed, for them here if they break out towards south, right? They can hit here, they can hit there. So it's sort of very promising area for them to attack. So they continue attacking, but they don't have much progress. Ukrainian bridgehead is shrinking, so now it's really around this town Svyatohirsk, which is tiny town, and essentially kind of like covering this section of the road, because the retreat is here towards Bohorodechne, village Bohorodechne, which is on the western side of the river. So this is really small, tiny bridgehead left. Ukrainian troops retreated from Sosnovo. So essentially there is not much left, and probably in 2, 3, 4, 5 days it will be gone, maybe even tomorrow potentially. So then situation here, Russian troops completely kind of mopping up and just checking anything here in this forest, and essentially it's all, all Ukrainian presence here is gone on the eastern side in this area. Let's look at what's going on around Severodonetsk, and we'll look at the Severodonetsk salient, as we call it. So the northern part is here, is stable. Russian side is not doing anything from the north, and all of the efforts are here in the Popasna area. Then there is effort here, and they continue heading towards Severodonetsk. By the way, we established which brigade. Last missing brigade from the 2nd Army Corps. It's a 2nd brigade, so now we know complete. So it's 4, 7, and 2nd brigades in the 2nd Army Corps. Let's look at first probably at Severodonetsk. This is situation as of May 30th, as you can see. This is like a really small foothold that Russian troops gained there. Then they really quickly expanded, and Ukrainian troops' defenses really, kind of fell apart. And they essentially captured, 50 to 60% of the town. And then yesterday, Ukrainian troops essentially retreated toward this chemical plant called Azot, which makes fertilizers basically, and other byproducts as well. So essentially this is where the front line so far stabilized. Ukrainian troops, for whatever reason, they trying to hold on here. There are about probably 300 to 500 Ukrainian defenders. It's not really big number. This is the only This is the bridge that was blown. This is the only remaining exit. We can actually look at it. This is how it looks. This semi sort of destroyed bridge. So there is only one kind of like one-way pass through the bridge at this point. As we said many times, it's in our view it's a lost battle. There's really not much to be gained by Ukrainian army to sort of staying here, except for probably its good defensive positions on this plant. So it's probably much easier to defend than residential area. So that's the only probably reason for staying there and trying to defend it. So now let's look at the situation around Popasna, because Russian troops made progress here. This is how it looked yesterday, as you can see. Now let's actually look at how it changed. So the major changes are Russian troops managed to dislodge Ukrainian defenders here in Pylypchatyne. So the front line now essentially goes near this Pokrovsk. Ukrainian troops retreated a little bit here. Then also Russian troops managed to capture majority of village Kamyshuvaha. They controlled this area around, which is also Kamyshuvaha here, which is around the station, and now they managed to gain control of their actual village, because this is kind of like extension of the village, or whatever you can call it. So this is actual village, so they control now. So they basically in this area. So that's small progress, but nevertheless there is a progress here on the Russian side. So let's actually look at this from kind of like the whole picture here. So this is this progress around Kamyshuvaha, where Russian troops managed to gain some ground, and this is where Ukrainian troops were retreated from Pylypchatyne, which was kind of like a salient on its own. So it's actually might be even better for Ukrainian side. So now it's the front line more or less straight. So, but obviously they retreated because they were forced to. There is for sure, Russian side kind of won the battle. Let's put it this way. Then there is continuing attacks here from the south by this First Army Corps. Sort of in order to kind of sort of create pressure on Ukrainian troops so that they cannot send so basically they cannot take reinforcements from here and send them there or elsewhere, wherever they need it, right? So that's the whole point of this attack basically here. Let's go now south. Let's see what's going on Strait of Donetsk. There was no actual attacks here today, so just artillery shelling. And as we mentioned before, the immediate objective for Russian troops here is town of Avdiivka, which they would like to capture by basically encircling it from the north, and that's why they started building this salient here for this wedge, and then they're trying to build from the south. Let's actually look at a little bit sort of zoomed picture. So this is this northern salient that they're trying to build. This is town of Avdiivka, and this is where they're trying to create their southern kind of like salient, southern pincer, and basically force Ukrainian troops to withdraw from here. Essentially, what they need you can see there's a road here and there's another road. So they basically needed to create enough threat in terms of coming closer, and even if they're not gonna cut the roads, if they can be shot with artillery, direct fire, where there is direct observability of the artillery fire. That's good enough to essentially force eventual withdrawal from the Avdiivka. But that they're far away from this situation here. Let's now look at the Zaporizhzhia front line, which as well very stable. Again, situation doesn't change here. No really attacks, just exchange of artillery fire here. This is big picture of the Zaporizhzhia front line. As we mentioned many times, there's no contiguous front line here. It's all centered around the strongholds. And for Ukraine, the main strongholds here: Kamensky, Orikhiv, Gulyai-Pole, Velika Novosilka, and Vuhledar. So, and then kind of like Malinivka, because that's kind of creating sort of the kind of like a corner or the wedge by itself that prevents Russian troops from kind of going in this direction. But again, nothing really, no changes here. Now let's quickly move to Kherson bridgehead. Kherson bridgehead situation is kind of the same, no really updates, extremely little information to almost want to say no information. All we know that this attack got stuck, and we've been saying this for a long time. What we're also confirming is that the reason this attack, in our opinion, succeeded initially is because Russian command put actually, as a screening troops here, put third-rated troops from DNR and LNR. Those are Lugansk and Donetsk region that were like Ukrainian territories occupied by Russia. So that's again why this is similar situation to, if you remember, to Kharkiv area, northeast of Kharkiv. That's why Ukrainian troops managed to gain a lot of ground there and almost got to the state border, because they were essentially just screening troops there. And for whatever reason, Russian actual regular troops were somewhere deeper or even on the Russian territory. So that's why Ukrainian side achieved gains there. So here was the same situation, right? And then eventually it was stopped by actual regular Russian artillery and our airstrikes. We're also learning that there is a fighting going on for town Svyatohirsk. Here we don't have many details what's going on there, but basically Ukrainian side attacked it, and there is some fighting around it. Unfortunately, we don't have many more information on it. So this is Svyatohirsk. This is Russian bridgehead on the western side of Ingulets. So obviously, Ukrainian side wants to eliminate it. And this is now the Ukrainian bridgehead around Davydiv Brid and Bruskinsky that was built as a result of that attack, but it's stalled, and that's it. It's for now. It doesn't seem that there will be any progress from here. Okay, then thanks for watching, and until tomorrow. Bye bye.